One thing that dads should be asking themselves every day is, what am I doing to prepare? The inevitable is coming. Something hard is going to come for you at some point. It is coming. If you're not preparing for that, then you will not be ready for it. So what are you doing today to prepare yourself and be better?
What is up, everybody? It's Ed Gough Jr. of the Dad Central Show and Dad Central. I was going to call this gentleman what I did before we went live, but he laughed too much. So I think I'm just going to call him the guy.
Are you referring to me?
Well, the guy.
Okay, that will be Drew Soleyn of Dad Central and the Dad Central Show. What's going on, Ed? I like you're changing up on me every single recording now.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'd rather be dead than bored. And I have to give at least one reason for the audience who are watching us, at least via YouTube, to check us out. And also, I just want to say right off the bat, please subscribe to whatever platform you're either watching or listening to the Dad Central Show. Please subscribe and please provide us feedback. We appreciate it, and we want to get our numbers up and also spread the word about the incredible heart work that we're doing at the Dad Central Show. So that's a little bit of what's going on.
Nice. Well, a little bit of what's going on is we've talked about this before, so this will be the last time probably. We actually got onto the backyard rink with the kids.
Yay!
The last 2 nights. Yay. And I was thinking about how many hours did I spend just to get it to this point. And I was thinking it might have been about 24 hours, I'd say. And the hour and a half that we were out there on Monday night and the amount of laughter, joking around, physical activity, fresh air in the midst of, -8 or whatever the temperature was well worth it. And the memories that have just sort of been etched in my mind. So the last thing I'll say is that, you know what, that's really why we did it. And I'm looking forward to more of those great memories the rest of the season and how I can embrace winter as opposed to curse it like I normally would. So that's it for the rink this season.
The rink this season. Well,
me talking about it at least.
Yeah, there's a few things that just piggybacking what you're saying. What you just shared is about the experience of fatherhood. And I wonder if the dads and fathers and those that love them ever think about the experience of fatherhood. It's a whole other conversation, just hit up in my alleged mind about the experience of fatherhood. You talked about all the hard work you put in bringing that rink to fruition, to life, and now the memories that will never, ever go away. It was hard work. It wasn't hard work. It was hard work.
That's your line. You're sticking to it. And I agree. It is.
Yeah. I always have things going on in my ledger. I'm gonna go here for a second. There's a associate of mine who does a lot of great heart work with men, fathers, and just people in general. It's a really good soul. And a number of years ago, I had a chance to meet his son. And his son was going through some challenges, really going through some challenges. But and the funny thing is, both of them have clear steel blue eyes. Like, that is just both of them. Like I say, that is your son. No, those eyes are just right there. And I knew his son was going through some challenges. We sat down for about half an hour, had a conversation. I said to him, his son, that, if you ever have any challenges, please reach out. And I was speaking with another associate about a week ago, and he said, "Did you hear the news?" I go, "What?" And he goes, "So-and-so's son is dead." And I knew that this gentleman's son was having some challenges when it comes to drug addiction. And unfortunately, the son is no longer with us. He's transitioned. So I know it's not a happy note, but it's a real note. And I really want to encourage our dads that you don't want to have that situation where your children are not living as long as you are. And I know probably people said, you want to go there? I said, well, it's part of being a dad, because there are dads and fathers and male caregivers that have lost their children. And I just want to dedicate this conversation to this gentleman, because he always is a giver, a lover of people, men, sharing. And he had challenges raising his son. It was from a former relationship, and it was challenging for him at times. So going to his son's celebration of life, we're recording this on a certain day, but at the end of this week, I'm going to the celebration of life for his son. So I just wanted to go there for a moment, because it was in my heart, because it's part of fatherhood.
Right. So almost the yin and the yang. So you have great experiences, great memories, but then you also have the hard things, the pain, the difficulty. Absolutely.
So that's why I said, enjoy those experiences, make those experiences when you can, because you never know, as a dad or as a father, as a caregiver. So it was not probably the way that people thought I was going to go there, but it was in my heart to just say, reality, invest in your kids.
Yeah,
you never
the importance of every day.
Yeah. So let's lighten it up a little bit. Okay. So Drew, we have another new friend on our conversation today.
Yeah, we do. But before we do that, I just want to remind people that the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. And
wow, Drew, you usually don't do that.
No, I don't. But it fit in well today. And
yes.
I think positive impact is really what we're going to be talking about, because today on the show, we have Stephen Johnston. He's a father, a radiologist, a nonprofit founder, and an Ironman athlete. When he found out his 9-year-old son, Luke, was going blind as a result of a rare disease, he founded a Race Against Blindness to fund sight-saving research for his son and thousands of others like him. So though Stephen is relatively new to the nonprofit world, he's a man on a mission. He wants to raise $1 million for a clinical trial, and is taking on challenges like the Ironman to raise money and be an example for his son. So far, they have raised over 6 figures. They've been featured on GoodMorningAmerica.com and the Dan Karate, If I'm Being Honest podcast, and have had TV spots in multiple major markets. So Stephen, he is living outside of Phoenix, a little bit warmer than where we are right now. And he spends his spare time training for his next Ironman and traveling with his family to create lifelong sighted memories for Luke. So, Stephen, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm really honored to have you and really excited to hear your story and to talk more.
Thank you so much for having me and for that warm introduction. I really appreciate it. And no pun intended there. It is much warmer here than the ice rink situation that you guys were discussing there. I think it was about 40 degrees this morning, and I was really cold. So
Stephen, just remember something. You're talking 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Drew's talking -8 Celsius, but you're still a lot warmer than we are. And I got a question. Have you ever been on an ice rink?
Yeah, so I have. It's not pretty. I'm 6'5", and my center of gravity is not made for the ice. And I spend a lot of time horizontal instead of vertical, but I have been on an ice rink.
Okay. Go ahead, Drew.
That's great. Well, Stephen, thanks for that. Rubbing in the fact that you're in, I know 40 degrees is chilly for sure. Totally for Phoenix. I get that. But, we love to start the show. Pardon?
That's parka and beanie weather here. We're very cold.
I hear you. It's chilly. I'm not going to lie. 40? That would be chilly for sure. The whole US has been hit with that cold. Anyways, we love to start the show by just getting to know our guests a little bit more and helping the listeners kind of, a peek into, your life, I guess. So can you maybe just start by giving us a little bit of, what was life like for you growing up, or tell us about how Stephen got to be where you are today.
Yeah, so thank you. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. It was a fairly small town at the time, so a fairly, simple upbringing in a semi-small town. And I had a pretty uneventful childhood, I'd say, very, very comfortable life. I didn't have a lot of adversity or anything that was hard that I faced growing up. I had I had great parents who supported me and gave me all the things that a kid could want. So just a really good childhood. And I can't say anything otherwise about it. And I ended up going to college and eventually found my way into a career in medicine and went through med school and residency. And I went to business school during all of that. And I would say that a lot of what I was doing at the time, I wasn't even sure necessarily what my true underlying drive was behind a lot of it. It was just kind of like, these are things I enjoy. These are things I think could make a great career. These are things I think could help me in life, but maybe lacking a little bit of that deep passion for what I was doing. And I think deep down that always kind of bothered me that I didn't have that deep fire and that deep passion for something. Because you see a lot of people who are pursuing these really deep, passionate projects and doing these things that mean a lot to them and really going after their dreams and things like that. And I wasn't necessarily following that path at the time. Um, and I don't know what you think, but sometimes I think things happen for a reason, that there may be some kind of deeper cause and purpose behind what we do and why we do it. And it wasn't, I think, until later in the last couple of years when I got this tough diagnosis that my son is going blind that I think it really all came into picture and that all those things were happening for a reason and that it was preparing me to be ready for the moment that I'm in now.
Yeah, that's really interesting and some great, I think things that many people could resonate with, right? Doing things as you're growing up that, I think they'll help me, but maybe not hitting on that main purpose piece, which, as you said, you think that it all came together around your son's diagnosis, which we're going to get to. But before we get to that, we also love to dive into that whole fatherhood journey because it's unique for everyone, but there are also some great commonality. So, why don't you talk a little bit more about, as you were becoming a father, and what were the things that came up? Any fears, any challenges, any hopes, and just how did you navigate that whole process of becoming a dad for that first time?
Yeah, it was obviously a really big experience. It was one of those moments that you knew was going to change your life, and you don't know how. So there's a lot of kind of fear and anticipation and wondering what's going to happen. Um, I had been married already for a number of years at the time. We got married young, in our early 20s, and it wasn't until um, in later 20s and 30s that we started talking about having a family. And so, we felt like we were ready at the time for that, and we had kids. And I will tell you that, as any father can probably attest to, is that you never are ready for it, right? That moment that it happens, you are just like the world changes, and you are completely unprepared for what is in front of you now. And that hit me in a very interesting way because my son, the second he came out, I realized that there was something unique. He had 6 fingers and 6 toes. And so I'm in healthcare at that point already, and my mind starts going lots of places. And I knew that there was his life was going to be just different. That I was going to have a lot of things to figure out with him, and we can dig into that whole story. But that's one of those surprises that is just an analogy for fatherhood in general. Is you never know what's going to come. You can never be prepared for the things that are going to come for you, but they're going to come anyways. So that's a theme that I've adopted as a father, is just preparing for the unexpected. So it was a amazing journey from the second he popped out.
You shared with us earlier that it was basically growing up was perfect family.
Yeah.
How has that helped you with the challenge of being a father today?
You know, I can't say that it's specifically helped me. I
Okay.
think it has given me examples to follow. So I had a really good dad who was just one of those dads that just was always there for me and really supported me fully. And so that was a guiding example. But when you start to dig down into how you handle each moment and how you can't be prepared for some of the things that come for you. So you have to have just a general skill set and a general mindset for how you're going to approach things. And so I guess from that, I had that example growing up of just how to be supportive and be there and be a good upstanding dad. But some of these things you just have to experience for yourself, and that's one of the realities of the world, is that you can try to glean as much as you can from past experience, but until you've done it yourself, it's really not something that you can necessarily learn in any other way.
I listening to you and reading of some of your story, one of the words that popped into my mind was achievement oriented. Where do you get that from?
That is a great question, and sometimes, again, I don't know the answer to some of that drive, but I feel like in the last few years, having gone through what I've gone through with now getting this tough diagnosis with my son that he's losing his vision and going blind, and seeing that there could be a potential cure for him on the horizon, I feel like a lot of what I was going through at the time was to prepare me to be able to take on this challenge in this moment, to have the medical training and understanding to take on a complex challenge like this, to have the business training to know how to start and run a nonprofit and raise money, to have all those things come together. So, you could say that there was some drive for achievement, but I feel like there was maybe some greater purpose that I was doing those things to prepare me for this moment, and that's what drove me to attain those skill sets, attain those degrees and those abilities, which was really to be ready for this moment, which I feel like was truly what was driving me before I even knew it.
It's good stuff. Drew, go ahead.
Hmm. Yeah, very good. Since we're talking about, being prepared for this moment, and you did share the story of right from the time your son was born, things were, different. So maybe could you talk about, what you talk about how you handled that situation that has helped in that preparation process, and how maybe another person who is faced with something similar, seeing their child with something unexpected, and how to you can't plan for prepare for the unpreparable, what they could learn from like how you've gone through that process.
Yeah. So I think it's been really a two phase story. If I want to get into how my son's diagnosis has really affected me, so when he popped out and he had the 6 fingers and 6 toes, what we went through at that time was a set of genetic testing, and it didn't actually reveal anything. We didn't find anything else wrong with him at that time. So we kind of got this bill of health that he's like, well, he had this extra digits, and we can't find anything else wrong with him. Keep an eye on him and see if anything else pops up. As a dad and being in healthcare, I was of course worried about, like what could come up down the road, but we really didn't know. So we kind of went about a normal childhood after that for a number of years. We really didn't get his ultimate diagnosis until he was, around 8 years old. So we had a long block of time from when he was born to when we really got the news. And so there was this stretch of time where life kind of went back to normal, if you will, and things just kind of carried along. And this is where I think my life went from a little bit of, everything kind of followed a plan, and everything was following, this trajectory of fairly standard stuff, go to school, get married, have kids, do all these things. Ultimately, we ended up going through a divorce several years after he was born. Um, and so I moved on to single dad life as co parents and going through kind of that challenge. And I think that that moment before we had his ultimate diagnosis and having gone through that divorce is when my life changed to the point where I really feel like I was able to take on this big challenge, because that was the moment for me where I really faced adversity at a really high level for the first time, going through a divorce, facing all those challenges, having to look inward and take responsibility for, you know, how you handle your life, how you carry yourself, what you're doing. And I think that was the big change moment for me where, that adversity kind of fueled this big mindset change for me to being able to be somebody who could take on this new challenge that I've mentioned, several times with my son's diagnosis and the nonprofit. And so that was really the turning point for me, was facing adversity. And I think that it's so important to understand that adversity is not something to be, um, you know, it's not, you don't want to shy away from it. It's not a bad thing. We are amazing creatures, and we can really handle so much adversity in a way that no one could, imagine it unless you try to go through it. And I think it can really shape you and make you into a better person. And I think that was the moment that really, changed my trajectory.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of valuable but very powerful stuff in what you're saying there. I think of what's the saying that, it takes a tremendous amount of pressure and heat to transform coal into a diamond,
Yep.
right? And so, this idea of adversity can take, these rough, hard, cold edges and transform it into something, highly prized, highly valuable, highly beautiful. And so that's kind of what you're talking about. You're talking about that transformation, that story. But there's a part of it that I think not everyone is always ready to sign up for. And you talked about having to look inward. I don't know. So I'm just wondering, can you talk a little bit more, or maybe to the person who's like, I'm, I don't need to look inward, or no, like that's too much for me, or I don't know if that's even going to help. Can you talk maybe about the process of looking inward and how that helps that transformation?
Yeah. No, I think it's really important to be self-reflective. And no matter what situation you're going through, my belief is that everybody can always improve, everybody can always grow from anything. And if you can't look at yourself and do an honest assessment of where you're at, what can I do better? What things did I do that led to this situation? And what things can I control to get out of this situation and be better in the future and grow from it? So you really have to be able to take that honest stock of self-reflection, and that hurts. That sucks, right? Like you sit there and you go, "Wow, I could have done that better. I could have done this differently." And I think that it's really important to ask for help in those moments in life. You can't do these things alone. I think there's this preset mentality sometimes of like men thinking that it's, they have to do these things alone and they have to take on all this stuff. I think the fact that you guys exist and are doing what you're doing shows that, there's a movement of men who realize that, and we need community, we need people, we need support. And so asking for help in those times is super important to be able to navigate those tough moments and situations so that you can come out of it on the other side. But at the end of the day, you do have to look inward. You have to take responsibility. You have to take ownership of the things that are happening in your life. And that's, once you realize that, though, that's a very powerful moment, because you realize you're in control of your life. You are in control of what you do and how you handle things next. And taking that ownership of your life is a really powerful tool to be able to move forward and grow and do great things.
Yes,
Ed,
Steve.
can I hop in? I just want to
Yeah.
ask one quick thing.
Yeah.
What do you think your children are learning from you or are gaining from you as a result of this example that you're setting?
Yeah, so that's something that I've really thought a lot about recently, because as kids, you want to shelter them in some ways and you want them to have this easy life and you don't want them to suffer, right? Um, and of course, I don't. But at the same time, you know, it's easy to go through all these challenges and all these things to, that you're going through, and not tell your kids about them and not show them what you're going through and how you're handling it. And I think that to some level, at an age appropriate level, you have to let them into your life and what you're going through to some degree so that they can see that I have challenges just like anybody else. I'm going through things. You guys are going through things. Kids, they're going through problems every day at school and navigating relationships and friends in school and all the things that they're going through. So you have to let them into your world so that they can see that. And then you can tell them, like, hey, this is what happened to me. This is how I'm handling it, and then if you're in a similar situation, this is how you can handle it. So you have to let them into that process and start coaching them and telling them what you're going through. It's one thing for them to see it, but they probably don't see what's really going on behind the scenes as kids, like, the financial challenges you're facing or the problems you're facing with a relationship or whatever. It's your natural tendency to want to shelter them from those things and keep that in and not, not dig into those spaces. So to be an example, one thing I've really tried to practice is talking to them about, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what's going on. And how I navigate these situations. And then in some certain cases, seeking out things to have them be teaching moments. So you mentioned the Ironman stuff. That was something I specifically sought out to be, hey, this is a tough challenge. This is how I'm going to get through it. And like, you guys can watch me and learn from me, and I can coach you through this and teach you how I'm going through it. And then draw parallels to, if you're ever in tough situations, these are how you can do it because I did it. So, those are just a few of the ways I really think I'm trying to lead them and show them how, I handle these things and how they can learn from it and hopefully, take that into their lives as well.
Good stuff.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I have a few conversation pieces. So I'm going to start. You mentioned the word reflection a few moments ago. Can you, if you're comfortable, reflect on Stephen, the dad, before you found out about this challenge with your son, and Stephen post finding out?
Yes, 100%. So everybody has moments in life where you get this realization that you need to experience life, you need to embrace life and live life to the fullest. And the story you were telling before I came on about um, the someone losing their child, those are kind of those moments in life that you're just like, wow, life is short, life is fragile, life is, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Life can be taken away, life can change. And I think there's this unfortunate reality that until you're going through that yourself, that sometimes you don't feel that urge to really, appreciate living in the present and what's in front of you. And that was definitely my reality with pre-diagnosis and post-diagnosis. That was that moment for me where I'm like, wow, this is really happening. This is going to happen to my son. He's going to lose his vision if we don't do anything. And that pushed me to want to, make the most of experiences and live life and do some of the things that I've always talked about wanting to do, but not ever done them. And you're just kind of coasting through life and you're like, someday, someday, someday. Well, someday might not come, like tomorrow might not come. And that story you talked about really resonated with me in that sense because you don't know. And I wish I could bottle up that feeling that I felt when I got that diagnosis. And I'm like, I've got to start living in today, living in the present, taking advantage of life and fully appreciating it because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I might get a diagnosis that my son's going blind. Something else might happen tomorrow. I have no idea. And until you have that, it's so challenging. So if I could bottle that feeling up and give it to people without them having to go through that moment, and they can then start to really soak up life and appreciate it and live life to the fullest, that it would be the best gift I could give to anyone in the world. Because for so many years I was just coasting along and someday, 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 and then that happened, and now it's no, now has to be the time for all of it. So, but that's the biggest difference, pre and post diagnosis for me.
I also want you, if you're comfortable, to just provide some reflection and some encouragement for men who have or are going through divorce as a father.
Yeah.
And you're, I want to bless you. You're a great testimony because I thought about, when I think about you, and one of the many things is, in order to get through, you've gone through and you're going through. So if you could provide some encouragement, testimonial for our fathers and dads and male caregivers that are going through that divorce phase of their journey of fatherhood.
Yeah. It's one of those things that's it's hard, right? It's definitely one of those moments that can put you in a low point in life. It was certainly at the time for me the lowest point I'd ever felt in terms of where I was at. I felt like a failure. I felt like, I had, let my family down in that I wasn't able to be the dad, husband, father that I needed to be to, have that all work. And we really didn't have any like thing, one moment that like led to, the divorce. Everybody's divorce is different. So, there's going to be lots of different reasons people go through divorce. And so I'm not going to try to like, go into all those reasons. But for us, we got married young. We didn't have a lot of the compatibility that we needed, and we made it work for a long time and kind of stayed together and didn't really have the happiness, the connection, and we just kind of slowly drifted further and further apart and didn't work on the relationship and didn't have that foundation that we wanted to be able to make things work. And I had so much doubt and just like regret in me that I was like, I just felt like a failure. That was the only way I could describe it. And I think that that can lead you to a dark place in terms of, feeling like a failure and feeling like you don't have a purpose and that you're, you failed as a man. It's a very challenging place. So to get through that, like I talked about, you have to ask for help. So like I had a great counselor that I sought out, and she helped me a lot, and I saw her a lot and talked through all these things and reframed my mindset of, I'm not a failure. This was a failure maybe. And that this, sure, that, I didn't, that didn't work. But I have two choices. I can continue living my life thinking that, or I can take ownership of my life and know that in the future I will have grown, be prepared, be able to take on that someday in a new relationship, in a new marriage, hopefully. I can grow as a person to be a better man, to become stronger, to become more capable in all the ways. And that when you make that decision to take ownership of it and realize that you have the choice of what you do every day and that's how you're going to react to things. Like you can't control what happens to you. You can only control how you react to it. And so that was really the turning point for me, is when I established that mindset that I'm going to take ownership of my life. Everything that I do from here forward, I can control how I act, how I behave, and how I am going to approach these challenges. And like I said, that was, I feel like, the turning point for me that made me able to be able to take on this new challenge when I got my son's diagnosis. Because without that adversity and without that having to look inward and grow from it, and I would not have been prepared to take on this new adversity that was put in front of me. So while the divorce is something I wish I never would have had to go through in the grand scheme of things on paper, like it did prepare me to be ready to take on this challenge. So maybe things happen for a reason. Maybe that's one way to look at it. But in those hard moments, you do have to look inward. You have to reflect. You have to take ownership, ask for help, and then grow.
Thanks very much, Drew.
Yeah. Again, thanks so much for sharing honestly a very hard experience, but reflecting on lessons and ways to get through it, or ways that you've got through it. And so I guess I'm wondering, this idea of difficult emotions, right? Feeling like a failure, feeling like you're not good enough, or having a lot of fear, whatever it is, like those emotions are challenging. And so can you talk about the importance of your ability to acknowledge or even identify that you had these difficult emotions, and then how you have been able to work through them? And again, hopefully with someone who's listening who might be able to very much relate to what you've gone through, but giving them some next steps as far as based on your experience.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit different for everybody at the end of the day, of course. But when you're in those kind of tough places, like I said, ask for help, of course. Communication is really important. You have to be able to organize your thoughts to understand what you're feeling so that you can understand why you're feeling it and then what to do about it. So that I think talking and communicating and, therapy is, I think, a great thing. I don't think it's something to be shied away from at all. And then you need to take things on that you can build from. And it doesn't matter what it is or how big it is. You just have to take on something, a building block, something that you can be successful with. Because I was feeling like a failure, right? Like I was like my marriage failed. I've failed completely in my, my low point. So how do you dig out of that? How do you grow from that? And you have to start taking on things that you can succeed at. So for me, one of the things I took on was fitness. Like it was something I could take control of. Like it was completely in my hands, right? Like there's no external influences that could stop me from doing that. It's really within my decision to do this, and to if I fail at it, it's because I failed at it. Nothing else got my way. And so like I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to have these little mental hurdles every day that I'm going to succeed at. And you'd be amazed at how much your confidence can grow just from these little small wins. Like I made it to the gym today. And then I made it to the gym 2 days in a row. I made it to the gym 3 days in a row. I didn't eat dessert today. I didn't eat junk today. I didn't have a drink today. I didn't have all. So like these things are all wins. They are all victories. They are all things to grow on. And then you start stacking those, and next thing you know, you got a little confidence. You got a little, you're getting your abilities back. You're feeling like I can do things. I can take on challenges, and then pick bigger challenges and continually keep challenging yourself and make new challenges, and then go out of that box. So like fitness was it for a while, and now it's like, all right, I'm going to see what I can do with my career. I'm going to see what I can do with relationships. And you start branching out and expanding, and that confidence base continues to build, and your ability to, be like, all right, I can do these things. It's amazing, but you have to just take on those baby steps. And it feels stupid sometimes in those moments. You're like, this is little, this is small, but like, you really have to embrace that process of like rebuilding yourself. And like, a huge building doesn't get built in a day. They literally take that first scoop of dirt and move it out of the way. And then they put that foundation down and they lay that first brick. That's how it goes. Like you have to start over, build a foundation, and work your way up.
I love that. Go ahead, Drew.
That for me, one, it's very powerful. Reminded me of, Dave Ramsey's got the baby steps, that snowball, like that. But most importantly is your energy. The energy that has just come out of you as you shared that story. It was almost as if I saw this like stairway of like Stephen climbing that stair up these baby steps with these little wins. And at the top, your energy was, way up here. And so obviously that's something that you've lived and you've succeeded, but it's something that, I get inspired just hearing you talk about that because of the energy that comes out as you share that. So I just wanted to acknowledge the shift in your energy, but talk about, I think there's a lot of power in what you said. Yeah. Small wins, acknowledge it. Whatever it is, just keep stacking those wins. Thank you for that.
100%. Yeah. And it's true. Like so all the stuff we've been talking about up to now, we're talking about the parts of my life that were harder for me and that didn't feel as good. And I don't have these fond memories of. So that energy is not there. So even when you go back to that place, you start to feel it again. It affects your energy. And then you think about the moments in your life that you've started to succeed and you have these good memories, and that energy does come out in you, and you start to feel that, you're like, yeah, all right, like here we go, we got this. And going through that and having those wins, that is such an important tool, because I've had a lot of really hard days since then. But like, if you can think back to a time that you succeeded and a time that you had a win, you're like, I've already done something hard before. I can do something else hard again. And you remember those positive moments. You're like, okay, yeah, I did that. Like, I know that was different, but it's still something I can do. And I showed I could get through it. And here's how I'm going to get through this again. So those moments are so important to have in your back pocket, to be able to draw back on and be like, did that once, going to do it again.
That's good stuff.
Well said.
Yeah. And also celebrating those small wins, though. That's really key. You can have the one, but if you don't celebrate it, you're missing out.
Are you a dad who feels like you're juggling a million things at once? Balancing work, family, and personal goals can be overwhelming. But what if there was a solution? That's why we created our new fatherhood community called Dad Mentor. For over 20 years, Dad Central has built practical tools to help dads. We understand the challenges you face and provide the support you need to thrive. The biggest complaint we hear from dads is there's no dedicated support for their specific needs, but not anymore. Our new community, called Dad Mentor, is here to transform your fatherhood experience. Imagine feeling in control, staying calm and patient when your children misbehave, Picture yourself connected to your children, guiding them with confidence and watching them succeed. When you join Dad Mentor, you'll have access to a community of like-minded dads committed to their dad journey, just like you. You'll also get the Dad's Roadmap. This is a step-by-step plan to help you go from unsure to unstoppable as a dad. Monthly masterclasses and Q&A sessions. You'll get answers and know exactly what to do straight from experts. Monthly group meetups that connect dads over common topics. A dad's resource library. Curated webinars, podcasts, or guides built by Dad Central to help you grow as a parent. And finally, you'll also get exclusive members-only offers and events. Now, many dads do try to do this fatherhood thing alone, only to find themselves trapped in frustration and strained relationships. Then they may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms like drugs, alcohol, or other distractions, leaving their family and their own well-being at risk. We don't want you to reach that point of regret. Take steps to invest in you and your family today. Join Dad Mentor and go from stressed, tired, and overwhelmed to confident, calm, and connected. Join us today by going to dadcentral.ca/dads.
I'd be bad if I didn't ask, what is A Race Against Blindness all about?
Yeah, so we've talked about a lot of things. A Race Against Blindness was what came out of a lot of these tough moments. So a couple of years ago, I officially got the diagnosis that my son has a genetic condition called Bardet-Biedl syndrome. And part of that syndrome is the polydactyly, the extra digits on your fingers. But one of the most important symptoms of Bardet-Biedl syndrome is retinitis pigmentosa, which is a condition that causes you to slowly lose your vision and ultimately go blind. And in my son's case, those kids frequently are legally blind by their mid to late teenage years. And getting that diagnosis was obviously what really hit me hard and pushed me into this place of taking the action that I have, which is I was left with two choices, which is I can do nothing and let my son lose his vision, which is basically what we were told was going to happen when he got the diagnosis, or I can do something about it. I can take action and I can try to do something about this. And in any hard situation, anytime that you can take control of the situation, no matter what you're doing, you're going to be able to handle it and process it better. And so getting that diagnosis, our family, everybody, we turned that to action. And that's when we formed our nonprofit, A Race Against Blindness. And our mission is to fund clinical research that could cure his disease. And luckily, we are at a place where we have a real potential target, a human clinical trial that could come out of this as soon as we get the fundraising together. So taking action is an important step in hardship and in tough things in life. And that's what A Race Against Blindness was our deciding to fight and take action.
Love that. Drew?
So let's talk a little bit more about, A Race Against Blindness and how you've been able to gather more support, more interest, and like tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. So when we founded A Race Against Blindness, we really didn't have any real hope per se. We didn't know of anybody doing research on this. We didn't know what we were going to be able to accomplish. We just knew we needed to do something. So we reached out to the community and started seeing, is there anybody working on this? Is there anybody doing research? Is there any other groups supporting this condition and this cause? And, there were some peripheral groups that we found that were doing similar things and, kind of in some of the general areas, but nothing really supported on like research, finding a cure for this vision loss. And so that's what we took on. And luckily we connected ultimately with a research group out of the UK who was actually working on this condition. And they had been doing this animal model research for many years. And they had come to a place where they had a potential therapy that could become a human clinical trial. And they were basically like, hey, we're fundraising. We're trying to, get this to a human clinical trial. And that's right when we came along and we're like, we're looking to fundraise and, make a difference and support this. And so the timing couldn't have been better in the sense of what we were trying to do and what they were trying to do, and having our kind of collective missions align at the right time. And so we were able to really grasp onto a clear target of why we were doing it and what we were doing and what we're trying to fundraise for, as opposed to just some kind of like, let's support awareness, let's support research. It was really like, this is our target. We have a real thing that we're fundraising for, which was really motivating in terms of being able to, have something to fight for. So we decided to put ourselves out there, as a family, divorced parents, our kids, the whole 9 yards of, this is what we're going through. This is the reality that we're facing. This is how we're handling it. And this is our cause, and sharing our lives and letting people see into all the stuff that we're doing and going through. And along the way, we've, really hit the fundraising hard and made a lot of difference. And we have a lot of hope on the horizon. So it's been a wild, crazy process, but it's been really rewarding. And I'm just really grateful that everything in my life that has happened to this point put me in a position ready to take this and take this and be successful for my son and all the kids like him.
I want to ask, as you're sharing with us today, another word that comes up in my alleged mind is evolution. And I'm looking at your journey, and there's different evolutions. What evolution of you, or what have you found out about yourself in a race against blindness journey, as a father or as a man?
Yeah, no, there's so many wins that you can dig into. I think evolution is such a great concept to dig into, because you look at all the really great stories that we, a lot of men hang on to, the Michael Jordans of the world and all that kind of stuff. Great example, like so much evolution there, getting cut from his high school basketball team all the way to becoming the greatest of all time, the adversity that you have to go through to get there, the challenges you have to overcome, the evolution you have to go through to become that person. He wasn't the greatest of all time when he started, but he evolved and he got there. So, wherever you're at right now, you can evolve, you can change, and you can grow and become somebody totally different than you would have even imagined that you could be in a year or 2 years or 5 years. If you just start going through those steps, again, those blocks, those, stacking those wins, going through those things. And I've essentially gone through a very similar process of being somebody who felt like a failure 5 years ago, and, a failed marriage of, being a single dad and being out on his own, starting over again, to having this purpose and this thing that I'm doing and this thing that I'm being successful at for, fundraising and, making sure this clinical trial happens, and being out there. It's just, you have to go through those evolutions in life to get to where you want to be. And you can't be scared by that process. I think that that's a process to be embraced, and that unknown and that fear is ultimately a good thing, and you can let it motivate you and drive you. And once you start stacking those wins, you realize what you're capable of, and you don't shortchange yourself anymore. You're like, wow, I can really do this. Like, I'm not now, my baby goals, like, of I want to get to the gym today, are now I'm going to raise $1 million, and then I'm going to raise $10 million, and then I'm going to do all these things. So you can stack those wins and see that, you can be successful, and that you can achieve so much more than you thought was ever possible. But the day that you're cut from that high school basketball team, and you're like, I'm going to be the greatest of all time someday, like, you have to stack those wins to be able to get to that point where you're going to believe that that can happen and that you can become that person.
Great. Drew?
Yeah, Stephen, thanks so much. Great content, great conversation. There's I guess maybe 3 questions I have, and they don't have to be long answers, but 2 of them you already know. We've been talking about doing hard things, adversity. How do you overcome that? So, what's one question dads should be asking themselves about facing hard things? And then after that, if you would, what's one action step dads can take, when it comes to facing hard things?
Yeah. One thing that dads should be asking themselves every day is, what am I doing to prepare? So the inevitable is coming. Something hard is going to come for you at some point. It might be today, it might be 10 years from now. It is coming. And if you're not preparing for that, then you will not be ready for it. So seek out challenges every day, do hard things every day, so that you can be ready when those challenges inevitably present themselves. So what are you doing today to prepare yourself and be better?
And how about one action that should be taken?
Well, right on the piggyback of that is seek out hard things. Actually
Mm,
seek out deliberate challenges. Pick a challenge today that you are going to do and overcome, whether it's, and it's going to be different for everybody based on where you're at in your journey to do, to prepare yourself and do hard things, whether it's going to be getting to the gym that day, or am I going to land a big, you know, big donor? What challenge am I going to take on today? But you have to seek those things out as action steps to prepare yourself. And that will inevitably prepare you every single day.
mm. Yeah, love that too. Seek out hard things like building a backyard rink or running a Spartan race. Anyways, I digress.
Absolutely. Those,
These are some
and
things
that's why,
I've
yeah,
talked about on the show.
yeah. And that's why I love the Ironman stuff is because, it's a deliberate challenge that you have to, wake up every day. And like, I hate it, to be honest with you. Like, I hate the process. I hate running. I hate swimming. I hate biking. Those are things like I don't like to do. And, you take it on anyways because it's a
Mm,
challenge. It's a mental hardship. You probably hear other people, talk about things like this. You got to do something that sucks every day to prepare yourself and to overcome these challenges, whether it's a cold plunge or whatever
mm,
you want to do. But like, I think those things really are truly valuable. So seek out things that you don't want to do that suck. And then when things that suck that happen that you didn't ask for, you'll be much more prepared to take it on.
mm. Nice. Well said. Okay, I got one more question, and then
Okay.
I'll turn over to you, Ed. Um, what do you hope for your son, but also for your children? Because I know you also have a daughter. What do you hope most for them through this process of a race against blindness and just the path that your family is on?
I hope that they see what I am doing as the example of being able to take on challenges and do hard things. I don't specifically hope for one single thing from them. I hope that I can find a cure for my son. I hope all those things. But what I hope that they really take away is that they can overcome these things in life that are inevitably going to happen to them. And I can't prevent those things from happening for them as a father. There's no way I can prevent those challenges and hardships. They will come. But I hope that I can prepare them that they can see that I've gotten through some hard things in my life and that they can take away from that and realize that when these things happen to them, they're less overwhelming, they're less scary, they're less, detrimental to their lives as maybe some of these things have been in my life, that they can push through those moments and be really successful with any challenges that they face. So I hope they build those skills in watching what I'm doing and learning from how I'm handling these things.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good stuff. Well, we're going to call it a wrap. We could go on for much longer, but Drew wants to do some skating and Stephen needs to do some running. So we want to thank you, Stephen, for taking time to share with the Dad Central show family, you and your family. We want to bless everything past, present, and future. Also, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can obviously check out our website, araceagainstblindness.org. We are all over social media. So if you type in that name into social media, you'll find us. My personal handle is dad.verse.blindness. I try to share as much of my life there as I am able to. I'd love to connect with people. If you need a just person to talk to, or you want to run some ideas off me, or you just want to follow along, I'm there. And so we'd love to connect with you. Check us out. I know there's a lot of people to follow. There's a lot of important missions in the world, and this is ours. So if it rings true to you in any way, shape, or form, we would love to have your support with just following us or anything you can contribute. So we genuinely appreciate anybody who tags along for our ride.
Excellent. Well, again, much thanks for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule. If there's anything Drew or myself, the Dad Central family can do to amplify the great heart work that you're doing, we are here to support you along the journey. So as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys having me. It was great to talk to you. And like I said, talking is so therapeutic. It feels good to tell the story and get it out there. It just really helps you reorganize your thoughts. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to rehash the things I've done and been through, because it's really going to help me continue to do what I'm doing. So thank you for the opportunity.
Our pleasure.
Our
Be
pleasure.
well. Be well and
Thank you,
keep the
Stephen.
faith.
Thank
Take
you.
care. All right, Mr. Drew.
All right,
going
Mr.
on?
Mr. Ed.
I'm not a horse, bye. But go on. Some people may know that reference demographic wise. If you don't, go to your search engine, put Mr. Ed on, and I'm not anything like that, Mr. Ed. Go ahead.
No. The preparation, like preparing your children, setting that example, I think, and hard, like they're all so good. I remember a conversation which is about to be published. It hasn't been published yet, with Dr. Roberto Olivardia from Harvard, and he talked about preparing your children for certain situations in life, and this conversation really reminded me of that. But this idea of seeking out and intentionally pursuing hard things because it's preparing you for the inevitable. I think that to me creates a greater sense of urgency and the importance of our example as fathers, and the influence that we have to help support our children for the inevitable things that come in their life. And so that's what stands out to me.
Well, a myriad of things. I'll piggyback on what you were saying about the practice. I am very much a believer these days, especially when it comes to fatherhood and male caregiving, of preparation, practice, and persistence. So preparation, practice, and persistence. That is really, and that resonated throughout the conversation. And also too, Steve setting a strong example, modeling a balance of strength and vulnerability for his children. Like he said, he's very open with them, and showing that dads can be strong, but they can also be vulnerable, and being brave enough to share that with your children is setting a great father-dad example. So one of the many things that came out of that conversation. So as we wrap up, the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there is positive impact. We would like to hear from you. Email us, podcast@dadcentral.ca. Guest suggestions, feedback, comments, etc. We'll take it all. If you want to listen to the show, go to dadcentral.ca/podcast. Also check us out on YouTube. And then finally, lots of great resources, free resources on dadcentral.ca. So as always, we'd like to say, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. Thanks for watching, and walk good. Be well and keep the faith.